What's up, guys? Caylen here from Modern Day Sniper, and we are going to come at you with another little installment of a question and answer session from the interwebs. So today we're going to talk back to Mr. Daniel Gilmore from Instagram. Daniel hit us up and wanted to ask some questions about like obtaining dope, and then how do you manage the data that you've obtained. And we're going to talk about that for you, Daniel. It's really, really straightforward and simple. So let's talk about data collection in general. So first things first, we're going to use some sort of ballistic computer program to come up with some hypothetical data that we should see when we shoot at a target at distance. And that hypothetical data is hypothetical until we've proved it to be true and correct with an experiment, which is actually shooting at the target and identifying where the bullet lands on the target with relationship to your point of aim. And we're going to manipulate certain variables, really only one variable in a ballistic computer program, to get the data to line up. And it's kind of outside the scope of this question and answer, and you can expect very detailed information from us on this in the future. But essentially what you're doing is you're manipulating the drag curve of the projectile inside the ballistic computer program to mimic what's actually happening in the real world. So what I'll typically do is I will get some target distances written out that are inside supersonic flight zones of my particular projectile in the density altitude conditions. And then I'm going to write down the range to the target, the hypothetical data that I should expect to see or the computer predicts me to hit with. And then I always throw down a baseline wind call. And then on the very final column here, after we shoot at the target and we hit the target with consistency and repeatability, we log down that final ending data. And that's what we're looking for. Like the days of tracking every shot, the call of the shot, and then the plot of the shot, that's old school stuff. Is it still applicable in some situations? Yes, but not this one in particular. So I take that data from the hard data that I've just proven to be correct, and then I'm going to look at my ballistic computer program and I'm going to try to tweak the ballistic drag curve, whether that be through the ballistic coefficient or manipulating the drag curve itself, which is from the Hornady 4 degree of freedom program, the axial form factor. We're going to kind of trick the computer into giving us the result that's going to be consistent across the board. Once that occurs, we will shoot some close targets to make sure that the close data is all good. And now, once that information has been logged, man, that's good until the density altitude changes or my muzzle velocity or projectile changes. So now I take that hard data that I've proven to be true and correct, and I'm going to transcribe it onto some hard cards. So this is another gap where I see a lot of competitors in the sport fallen victim to, is they're only relying on a Kestrel to give them data, and they don't rely on writing down hard data. Now, if you're just a competitor and that's all you're doing is competing, and you're not going to utilize your rifle for anything other than competition, that's totally fine. But when it comes to actually retrieving your data to apply it to the scope or a hold to hit your target, there's been some serious lessons learned, at least from my end, being a combat sniper and saying, okay, well, I see that target, but what do I need to put on my scope to hit it? We usually memorize dopes, but now with the progression of technology, I memorize my dopes to a certain extent, but like inside the fine, in between those, out past 800 yards or something to that effect, I really want to make sure I have the most accurate data possible. So I'm going to transcribe that data onto a hard card. And that hard card now can get slid into a wrist coach, or it can get attached to the side of your rifle, stuck in a pocket, whatever works for you. We just want to make sure that we have redundancy. We're not always relying on an electronic device to get us the data that we need to make shots happen. So some other pieces of gear here that I have to help you out with that is a really cool tool from my friends at Adaptive. consulting and training services is called the Field Density Altitude Calculator. These are for military snipers, and right now they're available 308 in 175 grain Match Kings and 300 Win Mag, both in the 190 and 220 Match Kings. And then they also have a 338 Lapua version as well. So that's a really cool piece of gear that we'll talk about in the future in online training sessions and things like that. But other ways that you can manage your data outside of that, I have like a sketch. This is kind of a sketch kit, some terminology that we use from the Marine Corps. If it's wet outside, it's raining, it's nasty. This is Lexan right here, so I can write on this with a grease pencil. And if it's wet, I write on that with a grease pencil. I can take a picture of that rendition or notes or whatever it is that I have on that, and it's now on my phone. So we do use a balance of technology, right? We use the technology for what it's there for, but again, we don't ever want to depend on it solely to gather our data. Obviously, if we have time and opportunity to do so, we'll use the technology to get the most accurate firing solution. But honestly, man, I am pretty much of the mindset that this, for all practical purposes, this is what I work off of. This is my system. So I basically range a target, identify the data for the elevation, make a wind call, build a position, and shoot. And it's that simple. I don't really have to rely on anything more than this. So hope that answered your questions for you, man. And guys, keep the questions coming. We want to hear what you have to say. So throw them out there, and we'll try to do this every so often for you. All right, guys. Till next time. Take it easy.